Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are replaying our Clarence Thomas episode. If it sounds a little different, it's because I had some technical difficulties on my end, so we're recording a little bit differently. But this is an episode that was in our 14th season, Sonia. We're about to start our 21st season soon.
Time flies.
It certainly does. This was released in February of 2022, and he has managed to do some even creepier crap since then. We should say that, and you'll hear this in our intro, but follow us in all the places.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out threading, what's going to happen there. We'll get to that, but
Yes.
if you're, once again, our Facebook group is where we're the most interactive. You just type in What a Creep Podcast group, ask to join. We're on Twitter at CreepPod, as long as that still exists.
Yeah, we're figuring it out.
We're figuring it out. We're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. Our email, once again, is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And this episode, I'm sorry. And Sonia,
Yeah.
you recently started a Substack for us that people can join. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yes, you can just go to Substack, type in What a Creep Podcast, even just What a Creep will probably just pop right up, and you can sign up. It's for free. So this is the newsletter that we send out for people who originally were signing up for Patreon, and we were sending out a newsletter. We decided we're just going to open up the newsletter. Anybody who wants to can join. So in these newsletters, we sometimes follow up on our past creeps, like Clarence Thomas, and
Right.
sometimes we, give you a heads up about who we're going to cover next. Sometimes we talk about what we're going to cover next in Dorking Out. We have a little area I'm calling the rec room, where I'm sharing all of our recs not all of our recs, because then the Substack would go on forever, but most of our recs, or highlights of our recs, if you will. And then I've been writing our horoscope as well.
That's been very helpful, by the way.
Well,
I've been really enjoying that.
I'm here to help. So you can just, go to Substack, What a Creep Podcast, sign up, get it for free, right into your inbox. It's delightful.
And you included in the recent Substack for July, you've talked about our amazing Supreme Court that we have here in America.
The not so Supreme Court, the court of unpopular opinion. That's what I've been calling them.
And they've had several very unpopular rulings.
Yes. So the one I wrote about in the Substack is they recently sided with this graphic designer who said it was against her religious beliefs to make gay wedding websites. It turned out that she has never been asked by a gay person to make a website. The person that she said asked her for a website is actually a straight man who's married to a woman who works as a web designer, so he would never ask someone else to design a website. The case is all made up. And of course it's made up, and it made its way all the way to the Supreme Court because it was funded by somebody called the Alliance Defending Freedom organization. It's just some bigoted organization. And the reason it was able to move up so fast is because there was actually nobody to fight it, because it's fucking made up. So it made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, and then they sided with this woman and her made up problem. It's just all bullshit. So that one happened, and now it's basically making it so that people can discriminate against gay people at their business. It's just a matter of time before someone at Subway sandwiches is like, I'm a sandwich artist and I don't have to make sandwiches for gay people. That's going to be a thing. I mean, I guess we could flip it around and discriminate against people and make America great hats and be like, sorry, it's against my beliefs.
It's also, right. It also can be somebody like a waiter, a server in a restaurant can just decide, I'm not working at your table because you're all gay and I don't like gay people. It's really fucked up. It's not what America's about.
No.
It's completely not what our country is about.
No.
Discrimination is not what we're based on. And I just sickens me.
Yes.
Which brings to the other ruling that they had.
Yes, which was basically, not basically, they overturned affirmative action here in the country because apparently we have no racism anymore. We've cured racism here in America, everybody. Yay! So Clarence, and the reason we're rerunning the Clarence Thomas episode is because Clarence Thomas is someone who actually has wrote an opinion about this affirmative action ruling. He is someone who he benefited from affirmative action. That's how he got into Yale or whatever school he went to. I forget. Honestly, I did the episode and I should know this, but I believe he went to Yale. He benefited from this, and now he's like, I'm just going to go ahead and pull up that ladder.
Right, he's kicking the ladder from under him.
Yeah, he is a garbage person. If you listen to the episode, you're going to find out why. And all kinds of other things have come out. There's the affirmative action ruling, which he did. He's continued to he's basically accepting bribes. He's not recusing himself from cases where he should be recusing himself. His wife is out there just accepting bribes on his behalf as well. And it's influencing his rulings, and nobody is calling him on it. He's not recusing himself from anything. He should be removed, to be honest, but clearly that's not going to happen. It's upsetting, to say the least.
And we include in our show notes everything.
Yes.
Everything is sourced in our material. You can do even more digging, and if you want to.
Feel free to dig into those show notes, but there's even more since then. When we originally did this episode, it started with Clarence Thomas, and then it turned into Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny was also part of the episode, and there's been so much more since then, so feel free to dig in. He's a fucking creep, and she is a creep too, and I hate these kind of people that again kick the ladder away, that he has no sense of public service or no sense of giving back. He doesn't give a shit. It's all he just doesn't give a shit. It's all about money and power for him now at this point.
Which reminds me of you got me watching the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentaries on Netflix, which I really enjoyed, by the way.
Yeah.
And his public service part. I think they do a little bit of I was accused of being terrible to women, and I was bullshit, and I shouldn't have blah blah blah. I think they could have gone a little deeper, what exactly he was accused of. But they still wanted to make Arnold happy because they have the documentary, they have his series on Netflix. So, but it's interesting because he was saying, I really wanted to serve people, and he admits when I first tried, I wasn't getting anywhere. I had to really dig deep and learn the system better. Yeah. And he had some really big wins for himself.
He did.
California is a tough place to run.
Yeah, California is the 7th largest economy in the world or something like that. It's bananas how much fucking money goes through California. And he was someone who, is a registered Republican, or at least was. I'm not sure if he's changed that or what, but he was someone who absolutely tried to connect with other people, seemed to have an actual desire for public service, which I'm imagine that. Again, I don't agree with everything I almost called him Donald Trump, that Arnold Schwarzenegger did. There are some key differences, but I appreciate the desire for public service, and that he would listen to the other side, and again, the stuff about his relationship with women and some of the things he's done in the past, they could have gone deeper into that. But I also was impressed that he was even willing to talk about it on that level. I was again, the bar's so low for me, I guess.
The bar is so fucking low at this point. Anybody who says, boy, I was terrible then, we're oh my God.
Thank you for acknowledging.
What accountability we're seeing here. But that's what it is. So that's what this show is about. We do say there's a road to redemption. We do say, of course, if somebody's willing to really think about their behavior, try to make amends and do better, we're on board with that. I don't want to hate Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this brings me to another thing, we co-host a show called Dorking Out. Sonia mentioned that a minute ago. She and I were talking just off the air just now. We talked for an hour just now,
Yes, we
but
did.
y'all didn't hear that discussion, but we were talking about ideas for Dorking Out. But what are we going to be covering on the next episode, Sonia?
We are going to talk about Total Recall. We've decided to revisit some Arnold movies, so we're going to do Total Recall. I'm really, really excited. I haven't watched this one in a while, and I think it's going to be super fun.
It's going to be a hoot. That's going to be coming up on Dorking Out. The next episode of What a Creep will happen next week. We will hint what's going to be covered on our social media. So
Yes.
pay attention to us on social media. Please follow us in all the places, and please continue to let us know your ideas for creeps and non-creeps and all those places I mentioned before.
Yeah, we take
And
requests. We take
we do-
requests.
And especially for non-creeps, we often need help with that. We got creeps. The list for creeps is a mile long.
Yes.
We'll never get through it in our lifetimes. But the non-creeps can be tougher because they have to have a special something
Yeah.
going for them. Somebody mentioned today about George Michael because we both saw the Wham documentary. We also talk on Dorking Out about what we're watching. So definitely we'll go into that more. But someone mentioned he should be a non-creep. And I feel like we did have him for a non-creep in a past episode. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember. It's not impossible that he came up.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
Yes.
send us your suggestions. And also, if you would like some stickers wherever you are on the planet of Earth, send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com with your address, and we will send them to you. And Sonia, where can they find you in these difficult social media times?
You can find me at The Sonia Show everywhere. I use the same. So it's thesoniashow.com, The Sonia Show Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, everywhere. Go to those things. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm a little more complicated. I tried not to be, you guys. I really tried to put them all. But anyway, it's at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter, as long as that exists, Instagram and Threads, and my site, Brooklyn Fit Chick, and my TikTok is at Margot Donahue, and I put lots of clips there for the movies we're going to be covering. And y'all, thank you so much. Have a great summer. Be safe. We'll be back with a new episode, next week. Just don't be a
creep.
Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Warning. This episode contains the mispronunciation of the word/city, Worcester. We apologize to everybody in Massachusetts for the error. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, friend.
Hello, my friend. You're using the mic like Elvis just now, adjusting it.
Yeah, I was just adjusting it. And do you want me to sing a little something for you?
Did you see the trailer today, ma'am? Baz Luhrmann does the Elvis Presley movie. Have you seen it?
No.
It looks good. It actually looks good. Tom Hanks plays Colonel Tom Parker.
Oh.
It's Berman. It's like this big, lush production.
Yeah.
I
will absolutely check it out.
Yeah. So check out. It just made me think of it the way you were holding the mic, because that's the way Elvis used to do it. You need to just pinwheel your arms.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anywho, we are the show that talks about creeps from the past to the present. We take turns talking about creeps. Today, Sonia's going to tell you the creep, and then I'm going to give you a non-creep that'll hopefully cheer you up and make you feel like the world isn't on fire, which it normally does feel like. You can find us on social media. You can find us on social media at Facebook. We have a basic Facebook page. That's where people go to complain about our language. This is our cue to tell you that we use salty language in this program.
Fuck yeah.
We also have a private Facebook group. It's What a Creep podcast group. You have to ask to join. We have 3 questions. Just listen very carefully at the front of the episode. You should be able to answer them. And we also are on Twitter, but we're on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep for 10 years and never used it.
What a fucking creep.
We're on Instagram at What a Creep. And we have a basic old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Spell it all out. And we will send you stickers if you would like some. I sent a bunch out and people are writing back to me saying that they got them. So
Yay!
Congratulations for that. We want to thank Riri VB on iTunes for leaving us a 5-star review.
Nice name. Nice name.
We do love that. And I do know, by the way, for all of y'all that use Spotify, you now can rate the podcasts. So you go to the top for the show and there's like the little 3 buttons on the right. You tap that and you could rate the show. If you feel like leaving us a 5-star review, that would be amazing.
I'm going to leave us 1 star. I like more misinformation in my podcast when I listen to Spotify. 1 star.
Oh my goodness. Did you hear Jon Stewart the other day?
What'd he do?
Oh, he's just sort of, there's so much information nowadays. It's just ebbs and flows. It's really hard to know who to trust. And I know.
Jon Stewart.
I know.
Please be careful, Jon Stewart.
Please be careful.
Careful, Jon Stewart. Yes.
I want to thank Kelsey and Leslie for joining our Patreon page. We're going to have seasons 1, and then here's the big news. Season 4 is going up on the Patreon page.
You better all listen right now.
Yeah, listen to it right now because it's going to be going up there real soon. We also put out 2 bonus episodes per month. Plus, we have a newsletter that goes out. But look, if money's tight, we totally get that. Just tell a friend about the show or, ask for some stickers put on your laptop, go to the coffee shop or wherever people hang out. And let them know your love for What a Creep. We really appreciate that. And Sonia, do you want to talk about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com. And it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. There are links to all of our episodes, except the ones in seasons 1 through 4, obviously, because they're behind the Patreon wall. And there is a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags, notebooks, whatever strikes your fancy. There's ones with our logos. There's you could get face masks that say maybe next year. I wear mine all the time. And I've also uploaded a design, Damn It Max, which looks real great on a mug. I got a mug and it's adorable. Everybody drink.
I need to get a t-shirt of that. Our t-shirts are super soft. You cut them open and you can use it as a sleep shirt. Super comfy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. I always wonder, because you say this, that you're afraid to ask. What are people afraid to ask about our website?
I don't know.
I wonder. Let us know.
I assume dirty things.
Let us know if there's something you're afraid about asking that's not addressed on the website. Just in case.
Yes.
Sonia, who is our creep today?
This week, we are going to be talking about Clarence Thomas. Ooh. He is I know. He's been on the list for a while. And one of our Supreme Court justices, Stephen Breyer, I think, let's say yes, is retiring. So there's going to be a whole confirmation hearing. It's probably going to get real shitty. So I was just thinking about, who else sucks? Clarence Thomas. So let's talk about him. Sources for this episode include the documentary Anita, which is streaming on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. I have quite a few sources here. ABC News, Slate, Mother Jones, The Nation, New Republic, New York Magazine, The New York Times, The New Yorker, Politico, Think Progress, 2 articles from The Washington Post, including one called The Nominee's Soulmate. Ooh. And it's it's gross. It's an old interview with Ginny Thomas, who we will be discussing here at the end. And then, of course, the usuals, Britannica and Wikipedia. So Clarence Thomas is a justice on the Supreme Court of the United States. He's only the 2nd African American to serve on the court after Thurgood Marshall. Since 2018, Thomas has been the longest serving member of the court with a tenure of 30 years.
How is that possible?
I know, right?
Oh my God.
He's also a real creep with a history of sexually harassing women. Super cool. Let's start at the beginning. Clarence Thomas was born June 23rd, 1948 in Pinpoint, Georgia. He was the second of 3 children born to MC Thomas. He was a farm worker, and his mother was Lola Pigeon, quote unquote, Williams. I assume that was her nickname, not her middle name. Maybe it was.
Okay.
And she worked as a domestic worker. She was a maid, housekeeper, things like that.
Thomas's father left the family when he was 2 years old, when Thomas was 2 years old, not the father. And Thomas's mother, she worked really hard, but sometimes she only got paid like pennies a day.
Jesus.
It's bullshit. The family often struggled and they were forced to rely on charity. And they had a house fire, which left the whole family homeless. And Thomas and his younger brother were taken to live in Savannah with his maternal grandparents. And that's Myers and Christine Anderson.
Wow.
And that's when it was like his first time like living somewhere where they had like indoor plumbing and running water, all that stuff, like all these
Savannah's
amenities.
beautiful. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Mm-mm.
It's gorgeous.
I have not.
It's gorgeous.
He attended an all-black Catholic primary school, and then he went to a boarding school that was a seminary. I guess he was interested in going into the church. He graduated from that boarding school. He was the only African-American in his class. He attended the Immaculate Conception Abbey in his freshman year of college, but he left because he felt like the church really didn't do enough to combat racism.
Oh.
Yeah. There's an interesting turn for Clarence Thomas, but we're going to get to it. He transferred to the Holy Cross College in Worcester, Massachusetts. Is that how you pronounce it? Worcester?
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Are you making fun of me?
I don't know. I think it's Worcester.
Okay.
I know it's Dorchester with a D.
He went to some school somewhere, and then he graduated. I'm sorry. While he was there, he actually founded the Black Student Union, and he organized like a big protest one time when some African American students were suspended from the school for some, prank that they pulled, while the white students weren't punished at all for it.
Doesn't happen anymore, does it?
No, not at all, because there is no racism anymore. He graduated from that school with a bachelor's degree. That was in 1971. He went to Yale University. He got a law degree. That was in 1974. And then after that, he had a series of jobs like we all do, right? We all had jobs like this as an assistant attorney general in Missouri. He worked as a lawyer for Montesanto. Everyone's going to correct me. He worked as a legislative assistant to a Republican senator named John Danforth in Missouri.
Monsanto?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Everyone, I can't even apologize enough for all the things I mispronounce. We should just start putting that at the top. We use salty language. Sonia will mispronounce things. We know it's a thing.
It's fine.
So during the presidential administrations of Reagan and George H.W. Bush, he served as an assistant secretary of the U.S. Department of Education, and he also worked as the chairman of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC.
Really?
Yes, this is going to come up a lot. And he was also a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the federal district in Washington, D.C. He was appointed to that position by George H. Bush, the first Bush. So in July 1991, Justice Thurgood Marshall, once again, the only African-American ever on the court at this point, announces his retirement, and Bush nominates Clarence Thomas to replace him. And obviously, this was smart on Bush's part. He's going to replace the only African-American on the court with another African-American male. But while Thurgood Marshall was quite liberal, Clarence Thomas is not. Let's just say he is not.
No.
So he's replacing a very liberal judge with someone who's quite conservative. So there was bound to be a lot of objections, and it was going to be a fight. So on top of the fact that he's just more conservative, he really didn't have a lot of experience being a judge. And
really?
Yeah, at this point, he worked for the EEOC, he'd worked for the Department of Education, and he had only been a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for a year at this point.
Holy shit, I didn't realize that.
By the way, has Brett Kavanaugh ever been a judge?
No.
Yeah, right? And Amy Coney Barrett, I don't know if she had either. Fuck those people. Anyway.
Yeah.
So he
It's a
had little
very-
experience.
It's a very political
ahead.
process. I mean, it
Yes.
depends who's in the White House, who's in the Senate, who's in the House of
Yes.
Representatives. There's a lot that goes on when it comes to picking somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. This is when confirmation hearings for justices started to get super contentious.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be presidents could nominate whoever they wanted and people would just they would just pretty
Shrug.
much sign off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Thomas is kind of the start of this like hyper political, really contentious confirmation hearings. So he hasn't spent a lot of time on the bench, and he also refuses to answer questions about abortion, which, by the way, Brett Kavanaugh also did. And he claimed in his confirmation hearings, I don't really discuss that issue. I'm like, fuck off.
It's only been the most hot button issue in America since
Right.
1970. Yeah.
Yeah. So on top of all of those things, he also, it turns out, likes to sexually harass his female coworkers. Whee! So here comes Anita Hill. She's a black law professor at the University of Oklahoma, and she worked for Thomas in the EEOC and the Department of Education. And she was approached by the Senate investigators when they were doing like a background check on Thomas. And she submitted her statements, and she said that Thomas repeatedly asked her out and made sexually offensive comments to her. And by the way, a couple of women submitted very similar statements.
Mm-hmm.
Hers were leaked to the press, and then it started this whole firestorm. And then the Senate Judiciary, that came out very wrong, but
Judiciary.
committee,
It's good.
yeah, was led by then Senator Joe Biden.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. They asked her to testify. None of the other women testified, by the way, just her. And, you know, we love to talk about how super fucking racist this country is. Excuse me, my nose is running a little bit. It's also really fucking sexist.
Yeah.
So sexist. And here's Anita Hill, African-American woman, called to testify in front of a bunch of old white men.
And there were cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
It was
cameras
televised.
everywhere.
I remember that.
Answering their questions. And she told the truth. And this panel included such upstanding citizens as Ted Kennedy, who really has
Drunky
what the fuck
Mick, let a girl drown.
yeah, Mr. Drinky Let a Girl Drown is there to fucking brother. And then Chris Dodd, who is also known for like drinking and carousing, and noted sexist and racist Strom Thurmond.
Ugh.
It is some bullshit. Go back and watch this testimony. It'll make your blood boil. It's so gross. And she is so poised.
Yeah.
And, you know, once again, I think about how like people will say women are too emotional to be president or all this stuff. Anita Hill, Hillary Clinton, what's her first name? Blasey Ford.
Oh, Christine.
Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who testified against Brett Kavanaugh. All these women so poised. So like just keep their shit together. Do not crack under pressure. Answer like hours and hours and hours of questions.
Invasive questions.
Evasive questions. And people like Thomas and fucking people like Trump or Brett Kavanaugh lose their shit when you
Because
dare to question them.
Anger is an emotion. Believe it or not, people. It is an
Yes.
emotion. Please.
So she answers all their questions, and she testifies that Clarence Thomas repeatedly asked her out, repeatedly, and demanded reasons for why she would turn him down. Like, she doesn't need to give reasons. She thinks you're a fucking creep. That's why. But she said she turned him down, and these are quotes from her testimony. She said, "I thought by saying no and explaining my reasons that my employer would abandon his social suggestions. However, to my regret," I love how she speaks. "In the following weeks, he continued to ask me out on several occasions. He pressed me to justify my reasons for saying no to him, and that these things kept taking place in her office or his so they weren't heard by other people.
Nobody could see it.
Yeah. She testified that Thomas just loved to talk about sex at work. He would often call her into his office and he would talk about like all the pornos he was watching. One of them in particular
Jesus Christ.
starred someone named Long Dong Silver, which y'all, you can't even believe how many jokes we had to listen to about Long Dong Silver back in the 90s.
Johnny Carson and David Letterman and yeah.
Yes. And he would just talk about like the most awful stuff, like the pornos he would watch about. It would be like women having sex with animals, group sex, rape scenes, all this stuff with a female employee who reports to him that he is consistently trying to pressure into dating him.
And
It's
that's
awful.
a polite verb, really.
Yes. And he would brag about what a great lover he is. And then, which is always
The
a good
hallmark of
sign.
not a great lover.
Yeah, right. It's he's a selfish prick who comes too soon. And then and then there's this very famous thing about like he went into his office and he came out with a can of Coke and he asked who put a pubic hair on it. I don't understand what that joke was supposed to be. I even Googled it because I was like, what's the joke? I don't get it. But he's fucking gross is my point.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is we could do a whole episode about just this hearing because it's so how she got fucked over. She got fucked over. And a few other women also filed statements, but they did not testify. So one of them was Angela Wright, and she worked as a public affairs director at the EEOC. This was in 1984. And she also said that one time she walked into like a meeting with Thomas and he asked her, what size are your breasts?
Ugh.
And this story was confirmed by like other people who work there. It wasn't like he said, she said, which we believe women when they tell these stories. Another woman was Sukari Hardnett. She worked as Thomas's special assistant at the EEOC during 85 and 86. And she said, and this is a quote, if you were young, black, female, and reasonably attractive, you knew full well you were being inspected and auditioned as a female. Women know that there are sexual dimensions to the attention they are receiving, and there was never any doubt that the dimension in Clarence Thomas's office, about that dimension in Clarence Thomas's office. They all knew it.
Well, because we do all know it. We're not stupid. I mean,
Yeah.
I always like the old hack comedian's joke is like, women don't know how horny men are. You know, you have no idea. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
Like, we start
know.
getting hit on when we're 12. You know what I mean?
I just, we've talked about this before on the show. Like, it's just so fucking frustrating. These women are just trying to do their jobs.
Just want to do their jobs.
They just want to work. And by the way, if you go back and if you watch the Anita documentary or any of the footage on YouTube or anything, sexual harassment was not discussed. It was just not a thing. And so many of the men on this committee were like, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
It's really shitty. So she testifies. These other women submit their statements. Then Clarence Thomas does his, rebuttal or whatever. And he accuses the committee of engineering a, quote, high-tech lynching.
Mm.
And I just wrote, oh, do fuck off, Clarence Thomas. Like,
High tech.
Yeah, high-tech
Oh,
lynching.
wow, we're all in chairs with cameras.
Yeah,
How
woo.
high tech.
He made it all about race, and it wasn't about race. It's how you're a gross, sexually harassing motherfucker. Like,
Right.
it has nothing to do with the fact that you're black.
And also no
It's-
experience. No
Yeah.
real experience in being a judge.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, And then in his 2007 memoir, Clarence Thomas called Anita Hill a tool of liberal activists, outraged because he did not fit their idea of what an African American should believe.
Sure, Jan.
The Senate narrowly confirmed him. It was a vote of 52 to 48. At one point, Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, called Anita Hill and left a message on her answering machine asking for an apology. It's time for you to apologize for what you said about my husband. And Anita Hill's like, you can fuck all the way off.
Yeah. Oh my God.
She's such an asshole. Like I said, we're going to talk about her. She's a fucking prick. But Anita Hill's a fucking hero, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, like, why would women make this stuff up?
The
Why would
long
we
duck
make it?
dong, or not long duck dong. It's
Yeah.
the long dong. That's the 16 candles. Sorry.
I almost said long duck dong, by the way. I had to be
damn
so
it.
careful.
Such a creepy movie now. Like the movie that you
It
saw
is.
1,000 times when we were young.
Yes.
So Biden was also really creepy asking her questions.
Yeah, they all were.
Yeah.
They all were. And they didn't understand.
Right.
they-
It's their privilege.
Because they're super privileged. You know, it's like, well, if you didn't like it, why didn't you just leave?
You're a
Blah, blah, blah.
lady
It's
person
like-
around a bunch of men. What do you want them to do?
Yeah.
Or my favorite is
exactly.
people are like, where do people meet? We're always at work. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. It's not a nightclub, okay? There's difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, let's say he liked her and he asked, and he genuinely liked her or something, and he asked her out and she said, no, that's it, man. Just fucking move on.
No is a perfect, solid answer. It's a complete answer.
She doesn't owe you a fucking term paper for why she doesn't want to go out with you, asshole.
It's the Herb Tarlick thing from WKRP. Remember Herb? God bless him.
Oh my God, Herb Tarlick.
Herb Tarlick was hilarious, but if you watch it now, it's like he just harasses Jennifer like
Yeah.
over and over again. It's
We're talking about WKRP. by the
WKRP
way.
in Cincinnati. He was a married man. It's the best, one of the best shows ever. One of the
It really
funniest
is.
shows ever. But yeah, it's the whole comedy was that he just hit on her all the time, even though he was a married man
Yeah.
with kids in a leisure suit.
Yeah. And she was always like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Bye.
Shoo.
Bye. She just shoo him away. She didn't seem very bothered by it. It certainly didn't impact her job, but yes, he shouldn't be doing that. So years later, a former girlfriend of Clarence Thomas started talking to the press. So her name is Lillian McEwen, and she was a former assistant U.S. attorney, and she had dated Thomas for years. She was
Why?
never asked to.
I'm
What?
sorry. I was just like, why? I
Why?
find him, there's nothing appealing about the man.
No.
I mean,
I don't get it.
no.
I don't get it. She was never asked to testify because they wanted people who worked with him.
Yeah,
You know,
I get that.
and she didn't work with him, but she had dated him, and she said that Anita Hill's allegations sounded very much like the man she knew. She said that, and this is a quote, he was always actively watching the women he worked with to see if they could be potential partners. It was a hobby
Great.
of his. She said that he would often tell her about the women he encountered at work. He would talk about their breasts with her.
Oh, what a swell
you know.
guy.
I know. He must have been a delight to go out with. I love it when men I'm dating talk about
The
hot
titties
women
of the
they-
other women in their
Yes,
office.
exactly. What a fucking asshole. Oh my, I would throw a fucking drink in his face.
Of course.
She said the instance at work where he asked the woman like what her bra size was, he told her about that. Like, it's something that he did.
he was proud of it.
Yeah, and she said that he was obsessed with porn and that he loved to talk about what he was watching.
And there's
all the
nothing
time.
more interesting than listening to people talk about the
So
porn that they're into. Ugh.
interesting. Such a creep.
That's appropriate anywhere.
Yeah. So in 1999, this is after he is now a sitting Supreme Court justice, attorney Moira Smith was invited to this dinner at her boss's house in Northern Virginia, and Clarence Thomas was going to be there, and she was like really excited to meet him. And she said that he groped her while she was sitting next to him at a table, and he was groping her. And then she was like, I'm going to move to another table. And he like groped her again. And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And like went and sat somewhere else. And it just, once again, like we have a serial sexual harasser who clearly is a misogynist. And then we have like a Brett Kavanaugh who's like a serial sexual assaulter, and they're on the Supreme Court and
Right.
Making big decisions that impact everyone, but in particular harm women, and that totally bites. So I don't want to go through like every case that Clarence Thomas decided on the Supreme Court, because that would be a really long episode. But I'm going to just do a few highlights to show you how much he fucking sucks. So he always votes against reproductive choice. He always sides with anti-abortion. He joined the majority decision in Burwell versus Hobby Lobby. By the way, every time I see a Hobby Lobby, I flip it off. And that's the one where the employer said they religiously object to covering women's birth control.
It's a major employer. It's a retail outlet. If you don't know what that is, that's where people get their, if you have a hobby, they've got a lobby for you, but they have everything. They have yarn and knitting needles and scrapbook shit. And that's where you buy it on the cheap. You buy large amounts of it. It's a big retail operation. So most places offer, if you work 40 hours or more, you get healthcare. That's how America works.
Because we're the worst. We're the worst.
America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
And some people are like, well, I have to be able to be okay with the choices that my employees make with their bodies, meaning birth control pills.
Right. They'll cover Viagra, by the way, but not birth control.
And they don't want to give maternity leave or paternity leave, God forbid. But they also don't want to subsidize. It's very frustrating as a woman.
It's very, very frustrating. He has voted to weaken equal pay protections.
The guy from the EEOC?
Yes.
How ironic.
I know. He compared the argument for affirmative action to the argument for slavery, and he has voted against improving like racial integration in schools.
Wow.
Right? Here, it's going to get worse. So Thomas casts the fifth vote. This is his key vote in kind of redefining what sexual harassment means in the workplace. So in a 5-4 decision, there was this case. It was Vance versus Ball State University. LOL, Ball State.
Balls.
Basically, it changes the definition of who counts as a supervisor in a harassment case. So
I'm going to beat my head against this table.
I know. So the majority decision said that a person's boss counts as a quote unquote supervisor only if he or she has the authority to make, and I quote, significant changes in employee status, hiring, firing, failing, promotions, reassignments, stuff like that. What this does actually is it lets a ton of people off the hook.
Yeah, I get it.
They can sexually harass people because maybe they don't have say in whether or not they could be fired, because a lot of people are actually fired by people in their HR offices, which may not even be at your location.
Yeah, and just sometimes people you don't want to be sexually harassed by anybody.
Yes.
Like even the person that's on equal level with you. I don't want you doing that. Right. I've said no. Stop. Yeah.
Mr. Sexual Harassment got to strike down protections against sexual harassment for everybody. Isn't that awesome?
Who could have predicted that?
Yeah, I know. Like everybody. So let's talk about his wife for a little bit, because she sucks too. Well, I'll mention he's been married once before. So in 1971, he married his college sweetheart. They had one child named Amal. They separated in 81. They got divorced in 84. So he's been married once before. But Clarence Thomas met Virginia Ginny. She goes by Ginny Lamp, a lobbyist. She worked as an aide for a Republican congressman. They met at an Anti-Defamation League meeting in New York in 1986, and they hit it off right away.
Okay.
They were married the following year. And so here's a little bit about Ginny. During the 80s, she enrolled in LifeSpring. Do you remember LifeSpring?
No.
Okay. It was I'm going to put this in quotes, self-help course that later it was decided it was kind of a cult.
Like Landmark?
Basically. I think so, yes.
Okay.
she was super into it at first, and then she became very troubled by
because they
some of
allowed
their
abortions.
because they allowed abortions. No, because they she thought it had a cult like mentality. So she dropped out, and she became very concerned about cults. Became like her jam. Like she's against cults, and I was like, sure,
me too.
He's fine. So 1985, Ginny Thomas takes on like being a public advocate against like cult activities. And she's like going to conventions and doing all this stuff. And I just found that particularly hilarious because now she's like a Trumper. And I'm like, girl, you're in a fucking cult. You're in a cult. What do they say on My Favorite Murder? You're in a cult. Call your dad.
Call your dad.
Girl,
yeah.
Call your dad. You're in a fucking cult. So the year Ginny marries Clarence Thomas, and he's working for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. Yeah, I know. The EEOC, LOL. It just happened to take an interest in the role of, quote, new age groups in the workplace. You know, what a coincidence. Like this thing that she's super passionate about just happens to get picked up by the EEOC the year she marries Clarence Thomas. And they start working on all these policy statements about new age training programs and how that conflicts with employees' like religious beliefs and all this stuff. And it's just kind of the start of a really disturbing trend because now all these independent like ethics organizations have noticed that like Ginny Thomas, who is still like a very busy activist, I'll just say, like she lobbies for anti-abortion legislation. She lobbies against like family and medical leave legislation. By the way, fuck people who don't want. What the fuck?
You don't care about families if that's what you're for.
Exactly. How can you be like fucking quote unquote pro-life and you're against family and medical leave legislation? She's garbage. Anyway, gun rights, religious freedoms, all that shit. All of these cases go to the Supreme Court where her husband is sitting.
Right.
It's a big deal, you know. And so the New Yorker recently did this article where they traced like all these associations between Ginny Thomas and cases that then appear before the Supreme Court. And he always votes on her side. Always. And it's like people have a right to be concerned. Like in that gross titled article, the one is like the nominee's soulmate. Like, you know, they quote all these people who say the one person that Clarence Thomas really listens to is his wife. Like he depends on her for advice. He listens to her. Her opinions matter to him, which by the way, I would hope they would if you're
right.
married.
I mean, they are married. I would say that.
But he's a Supreme Court justice.
Right.
And it's like, this is so, and together, this couple, they believe that like women and minorities are hindered, not helped by things like affirmative action or government programs. True equality is achieved by holding everyone to the same standard, you know, that kind of thing.
We're all given the same chance. Sure.
Yes, exactly. We all just start at the same place. The translation is they're the type of people who think everyone has to struggle because they did, you know, the kind of people who get to the top and then pull the ladder up behind them.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It sucks. So recently, Ginny Thomas has declared that America is in danger, girl. It's in danger, girl, because of the quote deep state, the fascist left, and transsexual fascists. We're the transsexual fascists. Yes. She's a founding member of a secretive far right group called Groundswell.
Groundswell?
Groundswell.
Okay.
They lobby against gay rights. She's aggressively pushed propaganda defending the anti-trans bathroom bills.
Oh, Jesus, she beat my head against the
She's
desk.
awful. She sits on the advisory board for groups opposing affirmative action, and they've all gone before the Supreme Court, and you'll never guess which way her husband votes. On July 6, 2021, you know, there was the big storming of the Capitol, and
January.
Yeah. Did I say July?
I said July.
Sorry, January 6th. There was a riot here, or, everyone stormed the Capitol. Not everyone, sorry. Trumpers stormed the Capitol. And, she was doing the whole like, God bless each and every one of you, for standing up and praying and blah, blah. And, so now there's like over 700 people who have been charged with this. And she has filed an open letter calling for a congressional investigation, calling the congressional investigation like political persecution, Like
we're not supposed to investigate that?
No, she's an asshole.
For God's sakes.
Yeah. 8 days after the publication of her letter calling it, political persecution, former President Donald Trump asked the Supreme Court to block the committee's request for his records.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, and then the court declined to they declined his request basically, but one justice voted for it. You'll never guess which one.
Okay, let me think. Sotomayor? No.
No.
What a dick.
He's such a dick.
Fucking dick.
He has never recused himself. By the way, Kagan has recused herself multiple times because she worked for the Obama administration. And when she even perceives there might be a slight perception of bias on her part, she removes herself. He never removes himself. Never. She has made it very clear she opposes the Affordable Care Act. She's done a lot of work on that. A lot of things about Affordable Care Act go to the Supreme Court. What else? Most recently, she also has tried to get some Black Lives Matter banners taken down in their town in Virginia because it's they hate America.
Oh, fuck off.
I know. She's the worst.
Oh, I hate this woman.
She played her old "Do you know who my husband is" card with Florida governor and COVID super spreader Ron DeSantis because she wanted him to speak at and I'm going to put this in quotes, a group of conservative patriots. Fuck you. Florida, by the way, one of the states, again, that sued Biden over vaccine mandates. Mm-hmm. Guess which way Thomas voted.
Yeah.
She sucks. They both do. And here's the thing. And she's not obligated to change her behavior.
Right. She's a citizen.
She's a citizen. She can be as garbage as she wants. But he's a fucking Supreme Court justice and he's supposed to be impartial. So
and he should be held to a higher standard than the rest of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how I feel too.
So I'm going to end this with a quote from Ellie Mistel. She's a reporter for The Nation. And she says, it is her husband, she's talking about Thomas, who has been elevated to a position of public trust. It is her husband who has been held himself out as an impartial arbiter of justice. It is her husband who has been morally unfit for the Supreme Court every single day he's been on it. And he's the one who should be investigating, called to answer for his ethical failings. So that's both of our creeps, really, Clarence Thomas and Jenny Thomas.
There's a lot of creeping going on in there, too. You mentioned
So
Teddy
much fucking
Kennedy,
creeping.
early Biden creepiness. Strom Thurmond, he has to be on the list for one day.
We need to do Strom Thurmond.
That's got to, we got to bump him up.
I must say maybe next season we put Strom Thurmond on there because what a fucking creep. The Clarence Thomas and Jenny Thomas fucking suck too.
Yeah, they are. No, that was well done, Sonia.
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank
Are you ready to have a mood shift here? We're going to talk about a not creep this week.
I can't wait.
Okay. Our non-creep this week, and I think his name is pronounced Peter, it's either McIndo or Macindo. It's MC, capital Indoe. He's 23 years old, and he's originally from Cincinnati, grew up in a very religious home, homeschooled when homeschool was really for religious kids. Mm-hmm. And he was taught gay people are bad and wrong and all kinds of things. And somewhere around a few years ago, he started just seeking his own answers. And he's one of those people who went on the internet and actually found good information. Thank God.
What?
And he came around and he realized that he grew up basically in a cult, or it was cult-like behavior, that they were being reinforced, and he wanted to be on the side of good. He also is a comedian at heart, and he's obsessed with Sacha Baron Cohen and people like him that have a character that they take out in public. And he decided like he couldn't get an audition to be on the Daily Show or something like that. He just in his moment decided, I'm going to create my own YouTube. I'm going to put out videos on Instagram. And here's what he did. He went to a women's march, and it was in January of 2017, the same day they had one in San Francisco and New York and DC. It was huge. It was all around the world. He went to one in, I believe it was in Memphis, and he saw the signs. And there's the Trump people signs, and there's the sign work at these things are amazing.
It's the best part.
It's the best part. I mean, it's the people watching and the sign reading. It's just amazing. Yes. But he said he saw so many crazy signs, Hillary ate a baby at a Pizza Hut, like things like that. So he there was one sign that was kind of found on the ground, and he grabbed a marker and turned the sign around, and it was blank on the other side. And he just wrote, "Birds aren't real." And then he held it up. And when people asked him, what does that mean? He goes, man, the government got rid of all the birds decades ago. They have these they're set up to go after us. They're monitoring all of us. It's deep state shit, man. Didn't you know that? Birds don't migrate. The government takes them away. And then puts them with microphones and stuff. And people were like, holy shit, man. And he realized like he was really onto something. So he kind of plays this doofus, and he goes around America, and he goes to all these marches. And
oh my God.
He put up billboard signs that say birds aren't real. And he has merch. Like, that's how he supports himself.
Oh my gosh. I think I need a shirt that says birds aren't real.
And you could you could definitely get a shirt or a mug or anything. And I supposedly am going to get something too, because I want to help support him. He's on Twitter, Birds Aren't Real. He's on Instagram. He's been interviewed by the New York Times. He was on Howard Stern this past week. That's how I heard about him. Mm-hmm. And he's so funny. And he goes on talk shows around the country, and he just plays this doofus. And the hosts are like, this is satire, right? You're just sort of, this is a goof. He's, no, I take great offense to that. It's real, man. And on one interview, he ate all this cold clam soup so that he would throw up on the air because he claimed, he had avian flu. He went to San Francisco, and he went in front of the Twitter building to protest their use of a bird as the mascot. He goes on camera and says, how come the bald eagle is considered American? Have you thought about it? Why do we pick a bird? Why do we pick something? And that's our not creep this week. The birds aren't real. It's this whole group of people that are in on it. God. But it's this 23-year-old. And if you look at his Instagram and you look at his Twitter feed, you could see for yourself. And it's just like we live in such a crazy batshit world. Yeah. Information, like people treating information like it's all equal when it's not,
Yes, it's not all equal.
It's not all equal. Just because somebody has an opinion or they went to a website doesn't mean that they have the right information. And that's what he's trying. That's the point he makes. And that's his whole thing. And that it just made me laugh super hard. I was just going through the Twitter and all the different TV really segments he has on there, and just people trying to like get him to break character, and he won't. It's just great. So that's
awesome.
Peter McIndoe or McIndoe. I'm sorry, sir, but birds aren't real movement. That's our not creep this week.
That's a good one. Thank you. That is hilarious.
Well, thank you very much. And if you like the sound of our voices, and by golly, if you've made it this far, you probably do. We host another show, and it's called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies, and then we talk about things that we're dorking out for the week. This past week, what did we do? We had Adam on. We did Waiting to Exhale.
Waiting to Exhale.
And then
so fun.
This weekend, because of the death of Ivan Reitman, we put a poll in our private Facebook group, and basically, Andy Potts, we got one. That's the movie that won. We're going to cover Ghostbusters, which I'm really excited about.
Me too. It is one of my very favorite comedies, and I'm looking forward to rewatching it and hopefully dragging my son along for the ride. We'll see what he thinks, but I am looking forward to it. It's a perfect comedy.
I watched it the other night. It totally holds up. And we're talking about the 1984 movie. We're not really going to talk about the others. We're going to kind of just stick with
Yeah.
The 1984 movie. That's the best one. That's his signature all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's plenty to say about that movie.
Oh, yes.
We don't have to get into the other ones.
No. You can find us on social media. Like I said before, we love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from the Ghostbusters. When you have an idea for a creep or a non-creep, feel free to email it, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. We totally appreciate the suggestions. It really helps us out. If, once again, you want stickers, let me know. I'll drop them in the mail. If you signed up for Patreon, I always ask if you want stickers. Not everybody writes me back. So if it goes to your spam folder, excuse me, you'll see something that says, what a creep. And maybe your email goes, nah, that's spam. It's me. I just want to know if you want stickers.
And you do. So reply.
Yeah. So reply, everybody. And once again, season 4 is going up behind the Patreon wall soon. Next week, we're going to have an event. That's our creep. It's going to be pretty fun discussion. I can't wait. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com, where I am writing again. You can also find me on Twitter at The Sonia Show and Instagram and TikTok. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fitchick for Twitter and Instagram. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. And I'm on the TikTok at Margot Donahue, just starting to put stuff up there. It's super fun.
It is. It's addicting.
Yeah, it completely is. All right, everyone. In the meantime, stay safe, be good, wash your hands. Just don't be a creep.
Creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.